Hey guys, Poro here with another guide, this time for Nautilus Jungle. Now this one might seem a bit weird, since Nautilus Jungle has a pretty high play rate at the moment after the changes. However, I've been seeing a bit too much hate on the pick, with a lot of the instant reactions being that it feels weak and underwhelming. And based on the Nautilus Jungle players I've been running into in solo queue, I can't say I disagree. That said, I personally think that Nautilus Jungle is way stronger than the community has been giving it credit for, and I even have a fun build and playstyle to go along with it for this video. So, to kickstart, I want to take you all through my thought process as I began testing the pick. I was originally going into it thinking that it would not be that good. Nautilus has had decent monster damage since patch 11.11 when they initially buffed his E monster ratio from 100% to 150%, and this change easily allowed him to full clear before Scuttle Crab. Even with that change though, he never saw any play at any level and was never viable in Pro. So when I saw they were rerouting the damage to be more front-loaded, I thought it would be a slight clear buff, but not substantial enough to change anything. When it comes to his initial clear speed, I was right. The clear is a few seconds faster, maybe going from a consistent 320 to a consistent 315, and the speed falls off fairly fast, just like it used to as you progress into mid-game. At surface value, my initial hypothesis would have been correct. However, there were two key aspects of Nautilus that I had vastly overlooked that turned this new change into a jungle slam dunk. I guess I should quickly explain what exactly they changed with the kit to spike the play rate in the first place. Old Nautilus Jungle's E had the aforementioned 150% damage to jungle monsters. The ability shoots out 3 waves that all do damage. You can technically land all 3 waves on enemies, but it's extremely difficult and you'll most likely be settling for 2 waves most of the time. New Nautilus Jungle's E changed the 150% ratio on all waves into a regular standard 100% on waves 2 and 3, but an 85 to 225 flat damage with 50% AP scaling ratio bonus damage against monsters to only the first wave. Lots of numbers, but what you need to know is that this first wave will do slightly over double damage from a normal one. So now that you know how his E changed, we can go over the first big key aspect I overlooked here, that being that when you front load the damage, it now gives Nautilus a very viable form of a winning smite contest. When it comes to jungle smite 50-50s, it's never actually a 50-50. A Xin Zhao should always lose a smite fight to a Pantheon, for example, as Xin's W2 is his highest damage instant ability, which would pair with his 600 smite to be roughly an 800 damage burst, whereas Pantheon's empowered Q smite has an execute tied to it and would deal closer to maybe 1100 or 1200. This ability plus smite combo is incredibly helpful for invades and objective secures, and Nautilus E is now one of the premier options for making sure the flips aren't fair. His new E does a lot of damage at early levels, as much as 200 on the first wave. There are very few junglers who have a spell at level 1 that can deal 200 damage, so Nautilus can win any invade he wants to as long as it's timed properly. The second factor that makes Nautilus Jungle stronger than people give it credit for is that people have this perception that Nautilus is a tank who should build tank items, and this is definitely true, but Riot has made a series of changes and patches over the past couple of years that players should really pay more attention to when all added together. His Q does 15 more base damage at all ranks, his E does 20 more damage at rank 5, and his E was also given an AP ratio buff to go from 30% to 50%. Reminder that his E has 3 waves, and each additional wave does half damage, so this can really be read as a 75 to 100% AP ratio on the ability. Since his initial E cast on monsters also has an additional 50% ratio on it, this means that his first wave has the base damage, the flat bonus monster damage, and a whopping 100% AP ratio on it. This means any AP item you can splash into the build will drastically increase your E damage, and I never see Nautilus Jungle players take advantage of this. None of the damage changes were that massive in a vacuum, but 4 small changes over time is a very large change when you put it all together, yet we've seen no change to his general playstyle. So with that general overview out of the way, let me tell you about my game plan and my setup to take over games. We'll start with runes, and I'm coming at you with the heat from the get-go. I tested out builds with Glacial, Aftershock, Phase Rush, and Electrocute, but settled on this ridiculous looking page with Dark Harvest, Sudden Impact, Grizzly Mementos, Ultimate Hunter, Axiom Arcanist, and Gathering Storm, with ability haste, adaptive force, and flat health. I'm guessing this is not what you all were expecting, so I'll waste no time and get straight into the build so that you can all be even more confused. For my core build, I always go Malignance Rush, Death Cap, Shadow Flame, Void Staff, and I'll usually slip a Darksteel in there and upgrade it to a Medjai's at some point to fill out the final slot after the Sorcerer Shoes. If the Medjai's just isn't doing it, I'll go Storm Surge last instead. That's right folks, this is a guide to full AP Assassin Nautilus. And no, I'm not pitching it as just a funny gimmick. This is genuinely the build I take in solo queue after testing out multiple other options. Remember when I said his damage and AP ratios have been buffed quite a bit over the years? Let's compare our good boy Nautilus with another popular AP assassin, Malphite. Let's assume that a full combo includes one rotation of spells and an auto attack. Both Nautilus and Malphite have auto resets, so we'll factor in that extra attack too. Malphite's auto attack at level 18 does 130 damage, whereas Nautilus does 117 damage. Malphite's passive adds nothing to this damage, and Nautilus passive adds 14 to 116 extra damage based on level, for a total of 233 at level 18. Malphite Q deals 70 to 270 damage with a 60% AP ratio, and Nautilus Q does 85 to 265 damage with a 90% AP ratio. Malphite's W does 30 to 70 damage with a 20% AP ratio and a 15% armor ratio, and Nautilus W does 30 to 70 damage with a 40% AP ratio. Malphite E does 70 to 230 damage with a 60% AP ratio and a 40% armor ratio, and Nautilus E does 55 to 195 damage with a 50% AP ratio, with an expected value of 82 to 292 base damage with a 75 AP ratio, and a maximum damage of 110 to 390 with a 100% ratio. Malphite R does 200 to 400 damage with a 90% AP ratio, and Nautilus R does 150 to 400 damage with an 80% AP ratio. So when we put this all together, we have Malphite at a base damage at level 18 of 1230, an AP ratio of 230%, and an armor ratio of 55%. Malphite's base armor at level 18 is 121, and is increased by roughly 90% when Granite Shield is active, for a total of 230 armor, which would turn his armor ratio into roughly 127 more damage, so we'll factor that into his base damage. 1357 base damage, 230% AP ratio. Nautilus, assuming only 2 waves of E hit to be generous, has a base damage at level 18 of 1437, and an AP ratio of 285%. Yeah, I wasn't playing around when I said Riot may have gone a bit overboard with all the damage buffs over the years. You could make the argument that Malphite's combo is AoE, so let's do that too. For AoE damage, Malphite has his R and his E. For Nautilus, he also has his R and his E, although his R deals reduced damage to targets who aren't primary. Malphite has 630 base with a 150% ratio for his AoE combo, and Nautilus has 692 base with a 155% ratio on the primary target, and 517 base damage with a 115% ratio on all the other targets. So yeah, Malphite wins slightly in the AoE battle, I'll give him that. But personally, I don't really think either champion has that impressive of an AoE combo, and they'll only end up one-shotting the person they targeted most of the time. And on top of that, Nautilus combo is guaranteed since his R is a point and click compared to Malphite's full body skill shot, which means one is basically always going to go through whether the enemy is a flash or not, and I think that's more valuable. Conclusion to all of this just being that if you thought the damage was too low to justify these items, it's not. Also, don't think killing people fast is the only reason to buy full AP items. The real demon lurking in the shadows is how stupidly fast his clear speed gets, and how insane his smite 50/50s are. With just the Malignance and Death Cap, his E is pumping out 800 to 1000 damage on monsters on a 3-second cooldown. His smite is a 2200 smite. That's literally Nunu smite. That's almost Cho'Gath smite. This motherfucker is walking around doing Xayah combo smites by himself. And once you've seen what his clear looks like with these items, you'll see the light. Witness as I walk in a straight line without stopping while killing every camp with pure aura. So back to the runes. I tried Electrocute for a while and thought it was decent, but I settled on Dark Harvest. I average somewhere between 20 and 30 souls a game, so it's definitely justified. Nautilus is pretty good at farming stacks, especially with how active his playstyle is. The sudden impact is for the hooks. It deals more damage than Cheap Shot, and it's reliable since you can hook anyone guaranteed off of your passive route or your ultimate. Ultimate Hunter is there to give me more angles to go hunting for Dark Harvest stacks and takedowns, and I definitely get my fair use out of it. I usually advocate against going Ulti Hunter because champs almost never need to ult off cooldown. This is not one of those times. Axiom Arcanist is there solely for the 8% increase to ultimate damage, and Gathering Storm is Gathering Storm. The most important rune here is actually the Ability Haste Shard. You'll need this for your clear speed, since all of your monster damage is in your E. So runes and items are done, let's get into the game plan. Level 1, I like to run out and ward my raptors, recall, buy sweeper, and then go prepare to invade enemy raptors. We don't care if the enemy is actually going to start raptors or not, because I'm going to win them anyway. If the enemy jungler is there, hold your E and start auto-attacking the big raptor. When it gets to around 800, you can hit the E smite and secure it. Your E also does enough damage that it'll probably kill a few of the small ones, and you might hit level 2 off of it. From there, you can either go back and farm your camps for the free lead, or if your lanes have push, you can follow the enemy around to all of their camps and be a pain in the ass until they rage quit. If the enemy isn't on raptors and instead started one of their buffs, you can speedrun the raptors and move to their red buff. Don't smite the raptors because you'll want it for their red whether they are there or not. If they are doing red, you can E-smite the red for the massive lead. If they aren't, finish their entire top side. You can easily clear raptors' red Krugs faster than the enemy can do blue Gromp wolves, and a 3-camp lead out of the gate is almost game winning. Next, I usually like to try and defend my own raptors, since that's the usual target for invade from the enemy when they realize their own red side is gone, but don't go too crazy for it if you can't get there in time. Vertical jungling is usually good for Nautilus since his ganks are so great anyway. From here, the name of the game is jungle tracking. As you get more and more points into E, your invades become much stronger. Anytime you think your lanes are in a good enough state to contest an enemy camp you know you can get to on time, do it. E-smite will secure everything, and your auto root and Q provides more than enough stalling power to get out even if you think you lose the jungle 1v1. I play Nautilus very similar to how aggressive players like to play champions like Bel'Veth and Graves. You play to completely shut the enemy out of the game and make their jungler useless. Grubs are easy to prioritize as Nautilus can kill them extremely quickly, and dragons are fairly fast as well, although not nearly as fast as champions built to take them like Vi or Shyvana. The ganks are self-explanatory as his hook and root are great tools to set up a kill, and your high damage rune setup will help find more windows for this. As you get into mid-game, it's all about finding squishy or medium targets to blow your full combo on in one shot, and winning objective situations with your great E-smite combo. The number one problem I see other Nautilus jungle players doing, and the reason why I think he's not looked upon highly is because people have it in their minds that he should play similar to champions like Sejuani or Skarner, and fit the role of the spam gank CC heavy roaming jungler, instead of the aggressive invade style to push leads and snowball games. If more people leaned into this strength of his and focused more on individual 1v1 jungle camp gap, I think his win rate would be much higher. The full AP flare is kind of just my own personal preference, but the same logic applies if you want to go more standard builds like Liandry's into tank. I usually don't like to go Liandry's because I don't think he needs the Faded Ashes to clear stupidly fast, and I don't like his stat profile lacking ability haste, but it's still an option for anyone who wants a more stable and intuitive playstyle. If you do it this way, go Glacial, Phase Rush, or Aftershock. I'm mainly just here to try to get people to invade more at the end of the day. I have nothing else for you for this guide. Nautilus is a pretty simple champion, and this is a pretty simple playstyle. I wanted to let you all know that I've started a Patreon for anyone who would like to support me more. Use the link in the description to check that out. I have 3 tiers, starting with Poro Prospect for $1 a month. This tier is mostly just for those who want to support me a little extra. You'll get a dedicated Patreon role in my Discord server, as well as access to a Patreon exclusive chat room that I pay more attention to than my regular Discord channels. Then there's Pro Poro Provider for $5 a month. On top of the earlier benefits, you'll also get priority to join any viewer games I do on stream, bonus videos like screen recordings of my Poro drawing sessions, random yap sessions about non-league related topics I find interesting, and maybe even more league content that I deem to be too low quality for my main channel. You'll also get a shout out at the end of my videos, and you'll get access to all of my video scripts as soon as I finish them, giving you a behind the scenes look at my content weeks before it goes live on YouTube. Finally, for $10 a month, you can be a Psychopathic supporter. You get all the prior benefits listed of course, and on top of that, I'll also draw you a custom Poro of your choosing, which will be featured at the end of videos. It can be a Poro OC, a champion Poro, or even something unrelated. I've had people ask me for stuff like an Eternum Rek'Sai Poro, an Otacon Poro, and even a Crash Test Dummy Poro. Thank you for supporting my channel, I really appreciate it. Shout out to Dylan the Orange Devourer for being a Psychopathic supporter, and LB56 for being a Pro Poro provider on Patreon. I'll use this money to end world hunger. I stream on Twitch and also have a Discord server, link in the description. I also have a Ko-fi page for any one-time tippers who don't want to do a monthly Patreon subscription. I'll see you all next time, bye!